Hey guys, Johnny May here and welcome to this week's Quick Tip. And for this week's Quick Tip, we're bringing you one of our amazing teachers here at Piano with Johnny. He's also my co-founder and his name is Yannick Lambrecht. He's an amazing jazz educator and vocalist and he has a ton of cool stuff to teach you. So show him some love in the comments and Yannick, take it away.
Hey everyone, this is Yannick and I want to welcome you to this quick tip on learning Silent Night in a jazz ballad style. We're going to talk about a few techniques in this quick tip such as seventh chords, reharmonization, and extensions to make this beautiful Christmas classic sound extra warm and tender. So if you love jazz and Christmas music, you'll definitely want to check this out. Let's give it a try. Alright, so here we go. Before we start learning the arrangement, I'm going to do a quick lesson overview. And what we're going to be talking about, as I mentioned, is the seventh chords, the extensions, a technique called tonicization, which I'll explain soon, and also sus chords or suspended chords. Now, if we look at Silent Night, how it's traditionally notated, it would probably sound something like this. And that's great. You can play it in this very simple and traditional style with just 3 chords. If we're in the key of C, which is the key that we're in right now, we would be using the 1 chord, which is C major, the 4 chord, which is F major, and the 5 chord, which is G major. And you only need to know those 3 chords to harmonize and play this beautiful melody. But for our purposes today, we're interested in how we can accomplish that beautiful, lush, jazzy sound. So let me play the first phrase for you, and then I'm going to walk you through all the techniques that I'm using. Here's how the first phrase sounds. All right, there's already a lot to talk about there. So the first thing that we will want to familiarize ourselves with is the concept of seventh chords. Earlier I mentioned that we can play this whole song with just 3 chords, the C major chord, the F major chord, and the G major chord. Now to add some additional colors, we want to pull from more chords that are in this key of C major. And we want to elicit that extra bit of color by using the 7th of the chord. So for our first exercise here, what we're going to do is we're going to be playing in the key of C major all of the diatonic 7th chords. That means the 7th chords that belong in the key of C. So try these out with me. C major 7, we're playing 1, 3, 5, 7. And now we're just going to move every note up a step to play the next one. This is D minor 7, D, F, A, C, E minor 7, E, G, B, D. Next we have F major 7, F, A, C, E. After that we have G dominant 7, G, B, D, F. After that we have A minor 7, A, C, E, G. And after that, we have B half diminished. This is B, D, F, and A. And if we go up one more, we're back at C major 7. So make sure you can comfortably play those. If you want to learn more about different types of 7th chords, we do have courses on pianowithjohnny.com that explain all these concepts, and you can find links to that below. Now, a concept related to diatonic 7th chords is the idea of extensions. An extension simply means this. It means that we are adding an additional note above the chord we're playing, above the 7th chord. So in the case of C major 7, we could add this note because we're adding another 3rd. This would be called the 9 because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 steps above the root of the chord. We could also add the 11, in this case for a major chord, what's most common is the sharp 11, or we can even add the 13. Okay, because that again is 13 steps above the root. So those are some popular extensions that you can use in jazz for a major 7 chord. For a minor 7 chord, let's look at our D. For the D, we could add the 9, which would be E, the 11, which would be G, or the 13, which would be B. Do you hear these extra colors that extensions add to the chord? And let's say we were on our dominant chord, the G dominant. We could also add the 9 above that. We could add the sharp 11, and we could add what's called the 13. And there are variations on this. You can, for example, instead of playing a natural 9, you can play a flat 9. Or for the 13, you could do a flat 13. It's all about how these chords want to resolve and how the extensions work in context. So speaking of context, let's go back to our example and take a look. So on the first line here, the first chord that I'm playing, instead of just playing a regular C major, what I'm doing is I'm adding the 7, which is B, and I'm adding the 9, which is D. So the first chord sounds like this. You hear that? That's for silent. Silent. Now for the next chord, take a look. Night. I'm playing D, F, A, C, and E. That's a D minor 7 chord with that 9th. Doesn't that add a beautiful color? And you can even do this. You can do a little grace note up to that 9. You're going to end up playing both of these notes together and then sliding up. So those first 2 bars. Beautiful. Let's take a look at the third measure. This one is an E minor 7, E, G, B, D, and G. Okay, this is our 3 chord, right? We're just walking up the scale. So this is on Holy Night. We go Holy. Now take a listen to what we're going to do here. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Let me go ahead and explain this technique for you. Now here's what we're doing on that last chord. So we had an A dominant 7, but instead of just playing those chord tones right away, here's what I did. Now, what did I do there? If we look at these notes, we have A, G, B, and D. This is what we call the suspended notes of the chord. We have the 9 and we have the suspended 4. Now these notes want to resolve. Okay, so I have here the regular dominant next to it with the suspended notes. And then we're going to go to our next chord, all is calm, right? So this is a beautiful technique that we can use in jazz ballads. We can take the suspended notes, in this case the 9 and the 4, and then resolve it to A and C sharp. Or if we want to be extra jazzy, we can resolve that to the flat 9 and the 3. You hear that? By itself, but with the suspension, and I'm doing this lovely little technique here. Let me go ahead and demonstrate it to you. So in my right hand, I'm playing the E with the A, then the G, B, D, and then these 2 notes go down to the flat 9 and the 3. In this case, A sharp or B flat and C sharp. Okay, this is what we call a secondary dominant in music because this chord is creating some extra pull to our next chord, which is D minor 7. If we were only using diatonic chords, then we would have used A minor 7. But because we want to create some extra tension to resolve to our next chord, we're making that A chord a dominant chord. So this is a technique called tonicization that I'm going to be talking about a little bit more really soon. But let's look ahead here. So for our next chord, we have all is calm, all is bright. And for this one, we're going to play a beautiful D minor 7 voicing. We have D, A, C, F, A, D on top. That's our 2 chord. Now we're going to go to a G dominant 7 chord with a little grace note there. Okay, you can harmonize that with the D on the bottom or with the F. It's up to you. And then listen to this next one. Wow, what's going on there? Isn't this beautiful, all the colors? Now let's talk about this. The next one we are looking at is a G minor 11 chord. Look at how we're playing this. G, D, B flat, D, F, and C. One of my favorite chords, a minor 11 chord. Notice that stretch in the left hand. You don't have to play all those notes together. You can roll it as I've indicated. All is bright. Now let's look at the chord we're playing on, bright. Here we are again using that suspended technique. We are, instead of just playing the C dominant 7 chord, which then takes us to our next chord, which is F, instead what we're doing is we are playing the suspended notes. In this case we have the 4 on the bottom, this is the flat 7, this is the 9, and now we're going to resolve those extensions. So the 4 is going to go to the 3, the 9 is going to go to the flat 9, and this chord tone here, the melody, is going to go up because the next melodic note is round. Okay, that's a lot to take in, I recognize that. The main idea though is that we are taking the suspended notes and now we are resolving them, and on top we are moving an extra note to create what's called the flat 13. Okay, the reason why we're doing this is because we're moving stepwise to the next chord, which is F major 7. Let's back up for a moment. I want to play through this phrase again with you, and then I'm going to explain why we have this G minor 11 chord, because there's a B flat that appeared all of a sudden, and I want you to understand why, and then also making sense of the C dominant 7. So here we go. All is calm. And this is going to be our next chord, F, C, C, E, and A. So let's ask ourselves, we know what these chords are, right? We have D, which is the 2 chord in the key of C. We have G, which is the 5 chord. But why did we all of a sudden make the 5 chord minor and then make our 1 chord dominant? This is another example of the secondary dominant, but we're going to take it one step further. Let's talk for a moment about this term tonicization. Don't let that fancy word scare you. It's actually not too complicated. The basic idea is this. If we were not using that principle, then in going to our 4 chord, you always want to ask yourself, where are you going? And how can we create a little bit more pull into the chord that we're traveling to? So if we were not using tonicization, we could just go from our C chord to our F chord, which is what happened in the first rendition of Silent Night that I played. Now if we want to create a little bit more pull, we can use what's called a secondary dominant, where you make the chord a dominant 7 chord. In this case, because we're going to an F chord, we have to ask ourselves, what is the 5 chord of F? It's C, right? So we make that a dominant chord, and then we can resolve to the 4 chord in this case. But if we want to take this idea even one step further, we can actually use a 2-5 progression to tonicize the chord that we're going to. So in this case, F major, we have to ask ourselves, what is a 2-5 progression in the key of F? Well, we have to take note of that B flat, and it would be a G minor chord to a C chord. If we add the 7th, G minor 7 to C dominant 7, and then to F. So this is taking tonicization yet one step further, where now we are pulling ourselves to that F major chord by using the 2 and the 5 of that key. But it's only temporary. I recognize I'm sharing a lot of music theory with you, and if you would like to understand music on a deeper level, we have lots of courses on our website that explain these concepts further. But if you're just doing your best to follow along now, keep at it. I understand this is a lot of information, but over time it will click. So let's look at this whole phrase. We have our D minor 7, which is the 2, to our dominant chord. Now this G minor 11, because of the melody. And what's going on there, as we just explained, is that we have a 2, 5, 1 of 4, right? We're still thinking in the key of C, but F is our next destination, so we're using a 2 to 5, landing on that 4 chord. A 2-5 of 4. We are tonicizing, and as we explained earlier, we're using a suspension and then moving some extensions. Suspended notes, moving the extensions, resolving to F major 7. All right, we're now on the 3rd phrase of Silent Night, and you have actually covered all the techniques that we're going to be talking about. 7th chords, extensions, tonicization, and suspended chords. We're going to continue to see how those are applied in the next couple of phrases. So the next phrase sounds like this. So let's talk about what's going on here. First, we have an F major 7th chord. Instead of just playing it without the 7, we're adding in that E natural. Now going to our 2 chord, D minor 7, to our 5 chord, and this one we're adding that 9, right? We have G, F, B, D, A, and now back to our C major 9, C, G, B, D, E, G, and now we're going to play a C7 with these little harmonized notes going up, harmonized thirds, because we're going back to F again. Okay, do you see what that C7 is? It's functioning as a secondary dominant because we're going to repeat that phrase again with an F chord. Let's go ahead and see if we can play this whole phrase together. Isn't that beautiful? Let's try to sing it. Round yon a virgin mother and child. I say we go on to the next phrase. Next one sounds like this. Holy infant, so tender and mild. All right, let's talk about this one. This one had a surprise in it, didn't it? We had our F major 7 again, but listen to this chord. Wow, that's a little bit of crunch. Which goes to our E minor 7, E, G, B, D, G. And then the A, 9 sus 4 again, exactly as we had it earlier. Okay, so we're repeating that technique. But let's talk about that B chord. What was that? B, A, D sharp, F sharp, C. Okay, well, we know that it's some type of a dominant chord, right? It's a B7 chord with the C on top, which we could also call the flat 9. So how is this chord functioning? Well, when we see a dominant chord, we can ask ourselves, this is the 5 chord of what? And if we look at that question, B is the 5 chord of E. And guess what? We go to an E minor 7 chord. So we are using this secondary dominant principle again, the tonicization. Secondary dominant, our E minor 7. Guess what? That A9, also it's not in the key of C major, right? So this is again a secondary dominant chord. Can you guess where it's going to go? That's right. A is the 5 chord of D, which is exactly where we're headed. This is Sleep in Heavenly Peace. Let's listen to this phrase. Some more interesting things happening here, but I'm sure we can make sense of it. First, we have D minor 7, D with C, F, A, and D. Nice spread voicing there. Now, let's look at this one here. B, A, D, F. We'll analyze it in just a moment, but that is a half diminished chord. It's a minor 7 flat 5 as we call it in jazz. That's a regular E7, E dominant 7 with the 1, the 3, the 7, 3 and the 5. Peace. On peace we have an A minor 7, A, G, E, G, C. And then listen to this next one. Ooh, isn't that beautiful? A little internal moving line. Another beautiful technique that you can use. So we have here D, F sharp, C, B, and E. That B we could say is the 13 because we have a dominant chord So that means the 7th, we're counting up from there, right? 9, 11, 13. And we're moving that down. 13, flat 13 to the 5. Okay, so we've played the notes. Let's make sense of it. We always want to try to understand the harmonic function because then we can take these techniques, understand them, and apply them to other tunes. So we have the 2. Okay, so what's going on with this B half diminished chord and then the E chord? Well, could it be tonicization? What's the chord that we're landing on? It's peace, right? It's an A minor 7 chord, and A minor 7 is the 6th chord in the key of C. So we have to ask ourselves, what is the 2-5 of A minor? B, half diminished. E is the dominant chord of A minor and A minor. So in this case, that's exactly what we're doing. We're using tonicization again, this time with a half diminished chord, to the dominant chord, which is E7, which resolves to A minor. A minor 7 is our 6th chord. So we call that a 2 minor 7 flat 5 going to 5 of 6. Okay, that's how we would notate that in terms of the Roman numeral analysis. And then you ask yourself, what about that D? What's going on with that D? Well, it's another dominant chord. D is the dominant chord of what? G, right? Well, in this case, listen to the last phrase. Okay, we are actually not going to what's exactly expected. We are delaying the resolution, right? We're delaying the resolution by playing a C chord over G, and then now we're going to resolve it with a good old 2-5-1. Isn't that beautiful? Let's look at that. So we have G in the left hand. We're playing inversions of a C major chord. Now on this D minor 11, oh, isn't that beautiful? D, F, A, C, E, G. Look at those extensions. We got the 9 and the 11. Heavenly. Good old G7, right? 1, 7, 3, 5, and finish it on peace. That's it. So congratulations, we made it all the way through. Let's go ahead and play it together from the beginning. It's been a lot of fun for me to teach you this. I definitely hope that you'll share it with some friends and family during the holiday season, and I'll see you in the next one.
Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed the lesson, be sure to check out pianowithjohnny.com. We have over 1,000 step-by-step lessons for all playing levels, where you'll learn your favorite songs, styles, and how to improvise at the piano. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.